1980s, a decade during which Britain went from sick man of Europe to a global capital for financial services. It was a period defined by social division, economic upheaval, and one woman's hugely contentious mission to revitalise her country.
She recognised that she was carrying out a revolution. She was a street fighter, and if people bullied her, she bullied them back.
She was not popular, I think, with the old guard, but she changed the city.
She would never be loved in the general sense of the word, maybe reluctantly respected. It's a huge strength.
I know full well the responsibilities that await me as I enter the door of number 10.
When Mrs. Thatcher moved into Downing Street, she inherited an economy blighted by industrial strife and undermined by a mood of inevitable decline. In her view, Britain needed a radical overhaul through deregulation and reform. The goal was social mobility, not via state intervention, but individual effort. It was time to unleash forces of competition and promote free markets. If that meant a widening gap between top and bottom, well, so be it.
She liked people who stood on their own 2 feet and made their own way. So she was very irritated by people who were satisfied with an average performance. She thought that people should strive for excellence, and that if people did strive for excellence, they would get the most fantastic rewards.
No, you lot grovel for my money. Look at them all grovelling for my money.
Harry Enfield's comedy character, Loads of Money, embodied the flash cash culture that Mrs. Thatcher's critics claimed was the upshot of her winner-takes-all policies. Dividing lines were certainly clear. The self-employed and wealth creators were regarded as part of her crusade. Its enemies were closed-shop trade unions and old boy networks. A fierce opponent of vested interests, Mrs. Thatcher drew heavily on lessons learned at her father's grocery shop in Grantham. Her marriage to Dennis, a successful businessman in his own right, developed her instinctive sympathy for business startups.
Well, she had a good relationship with small business. It's very different because she was a grocer's daughter and she understood what it was like to be in small business. And that's very rare because very few people get to the top in politics and really still remember their roots.
From the outset, her big idea was smaller government. Public spending was slashed and income tax substantially reduced.
Oi!
By the mid-1980s, Mrs. Thatcher had embarked on a radical programme of privatising nationalised industries.
If you see Sid, tell him.
From airlines, gas and telecoms to car manufacturers, oil and steel.
She believed profoundly that the state doesn't know how to run a business, any business wouldn't know how to run a business. So she was very keen on privatisation, and she recognised that to have a successful privatisation, whatever rules you created, whatever you did with debt, however you organised the financial structure, in the end it's about people.
It was not in favour of picking winners. It was not about giving large amounts of money to industry. It was about creating the right climate for industry and letting them compete.
One of the great myths about Lady Thatcher is that she was hand in glove with financial interests, established institutions. Actually, there could be nothing further from the truth. Under her government, the old boy network here in the heart of the city was broken up, allowing outsiders to flood in, providing new competition. That policy was known as Big Bang. In October 1986, the City of London was changed beyond recognition. Outdated practices and rules were swept away, along with the leisurely lunch and bowler hats. Deregulation of the stock exchange cleared the way for foreign ownership. A legion of overseas investment houses bought up many of London's traditional broking firms. At the same time, US financial giants such as Goldman Sachs began competing with domestic merchant banks.
What Big Bang did actually was open up the gateway for the American banks to come in and then all the international banks to come in. And we've seen in the last 25 years, London come as probably the preeminent financial capital.
One of the upshots of Big Bang was this. Canary Wharf, a temple to Mammon and the markets. After the Thatcher government had opened up London to foreign competition, financial giants from America, Germany and Japan flooded into the city. So when historians look back and ask, what was the Thatcher business legacy? They should come here, because this tells part of that story.
It was an icon. It was one of the things that put Britain apart from other countries. She thought the financial services industry was an industry that could flower and blossom and create great wealth for the nation. But I think that the main point would be that she saw Britain as the bankers of the world.
When the country badly needs somebody, they actually allow them to be a benevolent dictator. So maybe people like that emerge when the country really needed it, and that's why history writes the way they do.
We were the sick man of Europe by a long way, and all that changed over the next 10 years because of one person, Margaret Thatcher.